Hey guys, it's Jason here and my friend Nate. This is Conversations with Nate, and we're going to talk today about meditation. And also, before we launch into this talk on meditation, I'm going to say that if you haven't connected with Nate, his Facebook page, Nate Bockus Alive, Inspired, and
Alive in Sync Inspired,
and Live in Sync Inspired, then I'm going to put the link in the description below and you can connect with Nate. Please do so. Nate, how is it?
So we just got some energy work done.
Yeah, we did get some energy work done. And it's fantastic, actually.
Yeah.
Really good stuff.
Really healing.
And I certainly had never had energy work done of this type. And I went in with an open mind, and I thought I would just go in and use it as a meditation regardless. Just sitting there and meditating and listening as it was being done. And it was, oh man, it was so just powerful, beautifully, just filled with so much love and graciousness, and it was an amazing experience for me. I'm really glad I did that. Yeah,
it's
Thanks,
amazing.
Man.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for joining me.
For directing me.
It's amazing what we're capable of in giving to ourselves and to our fellow man when we're completely present and allow something to flow through us. Allow presence and intention, and when we're that, and just bridging that into meditation, that is in essence what meditation is being fully present and open and in that state of allowing.
Absolutely.
We basically open ourselves up to the river of life that flows through us, and if we all were able to stay in that present state of being at all time. This is when they talk about how meditation will change the planet, because you're in a different state of being completely. When you're fully present with yourself and with what is happening in your reality, you're not engaged in some outer doings that are not as a peaceful, not our peaceful reality.
Yes.
We get caught up with something that is totally out of your realm.
Yes.
And so just that, coming from that point of presence, that your own personal experience, and being open to allow it to flow through you.
So, I mean, we can, there's things that are going to happen out there that we're not going to necessarily like or agree with, but it's the choice of whether or not we allow that to come into our presence and take that on board. And if we are attuned, I think, to our presence and being in the moment, then that doesn't have to become a part of our reality. Right. Is that?
Yes. I guess we maybe take a step back. How we were saying earlier, like it's not as personal when you're in your own centered state and you're own grounded in yourself. That's not to say that you shouldn't take an action to help a situation out, but you can think more clearly when you're here, being present with what is. So if you're faced with a situation, something that might make you panic, otherwise, when you can, maintain that sense of presence, you just deal with it naturally. Yes, intuitively.
Yes, because you are more present, you are more in the moment, you have more senses to deal with it in a functional way rather than a dysfunctional way.
Right.
If we're not present and our minds are scattered, we haven't got much hope of dealing with things in a productive way.
Yeah.
And
it's more reactive. Like
reactive
state.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you do guided meditations, and And I've used those, especially to help me fall asleep. You know, and it gives the mind something else to do besides.
It's kept you awake all night.
It's also it probably a guided meditation to help me fall asleep has not kept me up all night, which is awesome.
Good.
But if something that people do, especially a lot of times when people have insomnia, having some kind of issues falling to sleep, and I'll read, like, on social media, I'll see my friends that will post about their insomnia, and usually they're posting it because they're up late at night dealing with it, but social media creates that insomnia.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it's like, get off of there for a few hours at least before you're going to sleep. You know, let your mind calm down. You know, because you're thinking about everything that you're scrolling past.
Yes.
And it keeps your already active mind extra active, and you're just...
And not to mention all the ions or whatever's coming from the computer screen, you know, the unhealthy atoms or whatever
we get overstimulated. And this goes back to you being in Las Vegas. The monkey mind that is overstimulated. It's the same thing when we have our electronics right in front of us all the time. We're overstimulating ourselves. And we can't go from that point to just falling asleep and thinking that it's a healthy transition, because it doesn't work that way for us, for our bodies.
Nate, what do you think about the idea of a balanced intake of meditation, of guided meditations, but also meditation in silence?
Yeah, I think, you know, I've always told people the longer you sit, the longer you can sit. Because in meditation, when it's not guided, when it's just tuning into silence, that tends to be the challenge, is tuning into the silence, because we hear so much of what we're talking to ourselves, saying these things, and then you get caught up in the thoughts, and you're having a conversation with yourself inside. It's like, oh, there goes that thought again. What thought? I'm thinking this. And, you know, it's like, who am I talking to inside of my head, and what's going on, you know? So, but if you sit there for an extended amount of time, you'll get to a point where you go beyond those thoughts, and it gets extra quiet. And that is, you know, I used to sit a minimum of 20 minutes. And I recently read it's good to sit as many minutes as your age. So that's a really interesting thing to think too, is like, okay, so I could sit there for 42 minutes, you know, or however long, because, you know, meditating, while you could meditate for 8 hours, you're completely disconnecting from life then. And so the point is not to make silent meditation a way to escape your life. Sure. But it can make it easier to live if you do it on a regular basis, if you meditate a certain amount of time on a regular basis. And I prefer to meditate in silence, because once you get past that point of the conversations going on internally, and you kind of step outside of it, and you come into that silent place, that's where, like, magic happens.
That's the true part of meditation, is that moment, or those moments or minutes where you are in absolute silence, where the thoughts have ceased. And it's that moment, that's the meditation. That's meditation. You know, I was reading the book, Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. Have you read that one?
Years ago. It would have to be one I'd have to reread.
It's just fantastic book. And I loved what this guy spoke about. He said, for people that have trouble struggling with the constant chatter, and it happens, and especially when we begin, It's so easy. It would be so easy to throw the towel in and say I give up, because my mind is, I feel my mind racing more and more and more when I meditate. In this book he says, congratulations, because it's not like you're thinking more thoughts. You have finally become aware of how crazy your mind has been. And I thought that was fantastic. So he's saying, and amidst all this chaos, this is the point not to give up. Because the first step is becoming aware of the thoughts, and aware that you are actually having a million thoughts every minute.
Yeah.
And that blew me away. And so he said a way you can overcome this, and I love this thing too. He said, you can meditate your practice for 5 minutes. Doing whatever feels comfortable for you. Breathing, closing your eyes, breathing in, holding if you like, blowing it out. Then he said, then stop, finish that, and just sit there. Don't meditate, don't try anymore. Just still be mindful of where you are, and just give yourself a 5-minute break. And then he said, and then go back to your 5-minute meditation practice again. He said, do this. And he said, what actually happens is, and this is the part I love, the part where you are having a break from meditation is the part that is probably going to turn into the meditation itself, because you're not trying.
Right.
You've given up the aspect of trying. And it makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's the issue, I think, is sometimes if we actually try to achieve something, we're losing it, aren't we?
Totally. Like, if someone sits down in front of you and you say, all right, close your eyes, don't think. Well, right away they start thinking. Even if it's like, okay, don't think thoughts, like I'm going to be totally quiet, and all that is that self-chatter that, and so it's like, don't make it into a goal.
Yeah.
Take the pressure out of it and just be with it. And
be with
that was why I would sit for so long, because, and I would even be like, oh my gosh, I just came up with this incredible idea for this book. I should write that down. And all these things, like, I better go check and make sure I didn't leave on the oven. And just things will come up that you just want to, like, get up and get out and move around a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you sit past that point, and you eventually take the trying out of it, because you're just sitting there.
It's almost like you give up.
Yeah.
But you give up you give up the trying.
Yeah.
But so you're saying the 20 minutes or however long you do it for is to quieten, to still your mind down. Right. And so initially when you first start, you probably still get these thoughts, and I mean, I know I certainly do when I start. I think it's almost a natural thing that we're going to think things. Yeah. So the idea is just to stay with it until we can let those subside naturally. Yeah. Yeah. And so, okay, may I ask you then, when you get a thought, what do you do? How do you release that thought?
Well, I don't fight it. I just allow it to enter and be, and I pay attention to if I react to the thought, like if something drifts into my head, then it's coming from somewhere, and my biggest thing is, okay, so come back to my breath, like feel my breath come in, and that's more of an action rather than telling myself, okay, start thinking about the breath, don't think about the thought. Just allowing the thought to be there and pass through it, rather than...
Not attaching.
Yeah, rather than attaching, because if I'm going to end up having an internal conversation with that thought, then that means that I am making it grow,
Yeah.
So it's more or less allowing it to be there, not reacting to it, sitting through it, coming back to my breath. And your breath, I mean, that also teaches you, like, how you deal with things throughout the day when things are getting hectic and people say, just breathe. Well, it's teaching you to go back to that place, and that's almost like your security blanket, come back into the breath. The breath is always here, but how often do we really sit and pay attention to it,
Absolutely.
And these are our building blocks. Every breath is our building blocks for our body.
And how often do we find ourselves holding our breath, and we're not even aware of it.
Yeah.
And then you hear that someone say, just breathe. And I mean, you may have seen, I don't know if I've worn this on YouTube. I think I've got a t-shirt that says, remember to breathe. And I've got that more for myself than any of you guys, believe me, because I'm often reminded of it when I walk in a shop. They'll say, oh, remember to breathe. And they'll just say, oh, thank you, I just took a breath.
Yeah.
And it's like, thank you, I just took a breath too. So it's a reminder for me, and it's a reminder for other people too, that how often we can hold our breaths, and whilst we're holding our breath, we're not open to the flow.
Yeah.
We're not in the moment.
Right.
We're blocking.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And we hold our breath in. We don't allow ourselves to exhale completely.
Mm-hmm.
So we build up a lot of stagnant breath internally, and that can create moisture in the body, which can create imbalance with our health. So it's important. Like, inhales are important, and fully exhaling is important as well. And a lot of times when you really get into a deep meditation, you can tell how much you tense up your muscles throughout the day. Like, a lot of times we walk around and we're really tensed up.
Sure, man, sure.
And when like, the more you're paying attention to it, the more you realize, like, oh wow,
I can drop.
Yeah,
I can just drop that now.
I'm holding all this stuff in, and I'm like walking around almost half flexed.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, just becoming more aware of the breath, and the more you practice meditation and being mindful, you know, just to keep it consistently. So, yes, guided meditations are super useful, super helpful, and it can help people, especially in beginnings.
Absolutely.
You know, to develop that mindfulness. You know, and so while you keep doing those, also spend some time in silence.
Absolutely.
And allow that to cultivate in your life.
Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
Thank you, brother. And thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back some other time. So much love to you and many blessings. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.